There we go, gentlemen, and we are live. Welcome, everyone, to another Wednesday evening right here at the Sports Krib. Uh, wow, it's been 2 weeks. I'm already looking for my football fix here. Uh, but I see my two guys are down here. I see Dave. Dave, how are you doing this evening?
Doing okay. We had a beautiful day here in Maryland, nice and sunny. It was nice to be able to walk out in the sun for once.
Oh, and I see we have Bo. Bo, was it? Did you have some sun?
We did today, but it's
Okay.
been a minute, so I was enjoying all of it. Actually, got some stuff done outside. It was crazy.
I hear you. I hear you. Uh, yeah, we've had a little pretty good run of weather here in San Diego. Of course, I know that's nothing for you guys to hear, but yeah, we've been in the 70s most of the week, so I'm looking forward to a nice weekend, of course, and we'll see what happens. So far, so good. But how, Bo? How's everything been on your other show there?
Uh, Good, man. It's been busy, right? So was at the Senior Bowl a couple weeks ago, right? And then Friday and Saturday. Friday was the last preseason deal for the professional rugby team. And then Saturday was the meet and greet for our arena team. So I've just been running around like a crazy person. And then next week starts the radio show I'm going to be on. So I'm really working on filling in the rest of this as Gray.
uh, well,
It's fun. Don't get me wrong. It's fun. It's fun.
if you live long enough, Bo.
There is that.
Well, hey, Bo, if you travel with the rugby team, if they come out to play the Old Glory, I'll have to hook up with you then.
So I probably won't be traveling unless I get some sponsors. Then absolutely, because I think that'd be a blast. But yeah, flights are just too expensive.
Yeah.
Well, you could always come down the coast here. We got a rugby team.
Again, like if somebody wants to buy my airfare, I'm in. The fact that it costs you, $700 to fly anywhere is ridiculous.
You gotta want to get away, Bo. Southwest there.
Yeah. So the problem with them is you want to get away, but you also kind of want to get away with a bag. Would be cool.
Well, Southwest, you get 2 bags for free. Yeah, that's
yeah, but you fly with them under the plane.
No, they're not like Spirit.
Spirit, they just tape wings to you.
Yeah. No.
Although weirdly, that's the one airline that hasn't wrecked. So it's not enjoyable, but you also don't die. So
there you go. And how's the different sports going out your way? I know you do your wrestling and some other things. How's it been going out your way, Dave?
Well, I mean, locally here, they're into they just had the county wrestling tournament. Our team they finished ninth, not real great out of like 23 teams, but it's an off year for them. But they'll have the regions next week, and then on to the states right at the beginning of March. So that's taking off. The professional rugby club here is Old Glory. They play in a small stadium up in Germantown, Maryland, and the tickets are like $20. So it's like really affordable. And Really about it. But it's kind of like that little lull between seasons here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, out here, everything's all year round. Lacrosse, there's always something to fill in during the season. So,
See, that's
uh,
how you know when it's a slow time, when you're like, there's lacrosse and there's cricket and cornhole. I think that's on ESPN, right? Yeah. So, I mean, what you're coming off, you're a couple weeks out of football. You got the combine coming, but nothing special there. MLB just got going. You're coming off the All-Star break for hockey and basketball. So, I mean, it's just kind of a slow week.
yeah, yeah.
Which is why you're hearing things about, Steve Smith Sr. and Shador not throwing at the combine because who cares? And I mean,
Yeah, well, you'll see as we go through our topics tonight. So, do we have a corner, Sue's corner tonight?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
So speaking of hockey, here's Sue's corner. I was quite engaged by the Four Nations NHL hockey tournament last week. The cool thing about these kind of events is the other things you learn about these sports. What I was not familiar with was the Canadian-based Colored Hockey League of the Maritimes that predated the NHL. And the history there is that 4 Black community leaders in Nova Scotia once enticed people to join their churches and grow their congregations in a unique way. A church hockey league that would see Black men attend service in the morning and play hockey afterward. This marks the 130th anniversary of the Colored Hockey League of the Maritimes. Hundreds of Black players played for teams across Eastern Canada in provinces such as Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Prince Edward Island decades before the NHL began play in 1917. Long after the league's end in the 1930s, its stories continues to hold interest. Its innovations and impact are seen in the pro ranks today. For example, goalie Henry Franklin is noted as the first goaltender to make saves while falling to his knees, a style that has morphed into the butterfly goaltending style that is commonplace today. Additionally, the slap shot, long attributed to Montreal Canadiens legend Bernie Boom Boom Geoffrin, was actually innovated by Eureka's star Eddie Martin. Despite the Colored Hockey League of the Maritimes' growth, it ended in the 1930s with many of its original players retiring. Real-world factors such as the Great Depression and other economic constraints also played a role in the league ending. There was a commemorative game this past week during the tournament between the featuring volunteer players representing the Halifax Eurekas and Dartmouth Jubilees, the 2 squads who played in the league's inaugural game in 1895. And then there's a quote here. With this commemorative game, we have players that are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s who have been playing hockey for a long time, as well as youth who participate. The history of this league is documented in a book called Black Ice, The Lost History of the Colored Hockey League of the Maritimes, 1895 to 1925, and a subsequent documentary that featured executive producers LeBron James, his longtime business partner Maverick Carter, and rapper Drake that came out in 2022. So that's Sue's Corner. That I had never ever heard of this league. And it's interesting that some of the things that they started that were attributed to early NHL players actually predated them and are still being used today. And then the idea of players in their 70s playing, in this commemorative game. I get that because I went to a game. There was
So you're saying
a
there's no
league
check?
for a while, the World Hockey Association, and they had a Baltimore had a franchise, and then they were playing the Houston Aeros, and two of Gordie Howe's sons played for the Houston Aeros. So Gordie Howe was in his late 50s, and he came out and he played in one of these games, and he was in his late 50s so that he could play with his sons, kind of like LeBron and his son playing NBA basketball. So, these hockey players, they'll continue playing for as long as they can. So, but I thought that was a really cool story that Sue uncovered there.
Yeah, that was something I had never heard of either. So, yeah.
I bet you Bill knows.
Yeah,
No
I'll bet
question.
you. Yeah,
No
no,
question.
no.
He knows the guy that started it, both his
Yeah.
middle names. I did actually get to see Bill in person.
Oh, did you?
At the combine? I mean,
at the Senior Bowl.
okay.
Yeah. And it was funny because it was the final day, and so I'm watching the game. It's the second quarter, and I'm up in the media booth, the broadcast booth, and then I hear Bill, right, and he has that unique voice, and I was like, I'm looking, and I'm like, oh, but I'm used to seeing you guys as like Lego men size in my computer, right? So I'm looking at it, and I'm like, man, that's got to be Bill. And I'm hearing his voice, and that's what's really sealing the deal. And I'm like, Bill? And of course, my name's not actually Bo, so on my credentials, it has my legal name, right? And he's just like, I don't know. I'm like, it's Bo. And he's like, oh, wow. So no, it was pretty cool. I got to see him for the game. So that was kind of awesome.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, never can tell where you might run into somebody at that, you know. So I see you both made it back on those planes. That's
well, that was before they started, running them into stuff.
Well, I mean, and Bill probably flew into Midway, so yeah. Oh, it's not funny, but it is funny. But
I mean, we had two planes here in SeaTac just run into each other on the tarmac. Like, I don't know what is happening right now. Like, they were taxiing and hit each other. That's as slow as you're possibly going in an airplane.
Hey, I don't know. I think that's a different show, but we'll see. But a couple things, maybe going on in the world of basketball. I'm going to hit on right quick with you, Bo. Bo, we were talking about the Suns, and right now they're below 500, and they're in last place in the West. Kevin Durant said he doesn't want to go back to the Warriors, but I think he's going to be looking for a new home. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the fact that he didn't end up going before the Warriors went a different route probably actually have him stuck with the Suns for the rest of the year. He seemed like he wanted out, which makes sense. I mean, realistically, anytime Kevin Durant's had to be the guy, like, it hasn't worked, right? I mean, and there's a few of these players, right? Like KD, immense talent, just not the leader, right? Like, he doesn't do well when he's that guy. Kyrie, elite talent, not great when he's that guy. AD, great talent, can't stay healthy, but also not that guy, which is why I laughed when AD went to the Mavs and it's Kyrie and AD, and they're like, who's going to lead that? Because both of them play hot potato with the leadership role. They're like, I don't want it, you take it. So, but yeah, I mean, unfortunately for KD, I think he's forced his way out of too many situations at this point that he's probably going to have to ride this one out a little bit.
Hey, Sometimes you have to swallow your pride. I mean, the only title he has is with the Warriors.
Mhm.
But hey, um, quick question: SGA or Ant Man? Who you starting your team with?
What now?
SGA or Ant Man? I needed Mr. Scott in for this one. I know he definitely has something to say. Ant Man is, that's Edwards, right? The leader for the Timberwolves.
Yeah.
SGA, young kid, but he has certainly been that catalyst for OKC.
I mean, probably him. Um, like out of those two, I kind of want different options, but yeah, I probably SGA, I guess. Um, he's young, so I think you can continue to build, right? It's probably the way I'd go.
You say you like some other options, Bo?
I mean, so I will say this about OKC, like I want to see them lose, right? For no other reason than they were my Sonics, and I just want that franchise to burn to the ground. But they do have a very good team. So as much as it hurts me to say that, but they're young, right? And so they're gonna have some learning curve, where they did already last year, right? I think they're gonna endure a little bit more of that this year. But I like where that team is. It's a team that probably next year legitimately has a shot at a title.
it, it, I look at this team and I look at when they had Durant, Westbrook, and Harden.
Yep.
And they were right about the same age as these young guys, and we were talking about how they should gel and blend into the team of the future. But it does seem that this version of OKC has a much better chemistry.
Well, yeah, a lot of that is because when you look at the style of play that Durant, Harden, and Westbrook required, is they're all on ball guys, right? Like they all needed the ball in their hand to be able to be effective. Durant can play off the ball a little bit, but Harden and Westbrook are both, ball dominant guys. In that scenario, Harden was the main guy, but they all need the ball in their hand. This OKC team has guys that can create plays without the ball in their hand. So instead of real ball centric guys dominating, they share the ball much better than that squad did.
Yeah. I do look for much. Well, they've already, I think, achieved as much as the other uh, those three because they've made it at least the quarters last year. I think it was.
Yeah, I think that's as far as that first OKC team made it. Also,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think you're right. I think that's as far as either one of them's gone so far.
Yeah. Well, guys, let's talk a little college football here. Bo, what's going on with the Pac-2?
So in theory, let's just preface it with that. They are expecting to get their TV deal done by the end of March. So that's encouraging if they are actually going to add schools and make this conference happen, right? There's no real details of what the TV contract is, though. So did they actually get what they wanted, or are they kind of floundering? We don't know yet. It just kind of is a arbitrary, oh yeah, it'll be done by the end of March. So, it's the Pac-12. I don't know how much I believe that. Because if I was a TV exec and I'm looking at a floundering conference that doesn't actually have schools in it. That's hard to want to be like, you know what? I will give you a bunch of money if you get people to come play, because you don't know exactly who's coming. There's rumored schools, although the conferences they're in are suing the Pac-12 to try and make them not be able to get their schools. So, I mean, all of a sudden that TV contract has to get much bigger to be able to pay off the lawyers and the other schools to allow them to steal those schools. So it just seems like it's more of a dumpster fire yet to come, but the news from the Pac-12 is they're close.
So what I hear you saying, Bo, is the TV execs are telling the Pac-2, show me the teams and then we'll show you the money. Is that what you're saying?
Which is exactly what they should do. I mean, think about it. You're like, okay, I know we have the Cougs and the Beavers. Not exactly juggernauts here, right? So you're like, okay, all right. What else you got? It's if I'm that excited, right? I'm not excited about, okay, maybe you steal Boise State. Okay, that's a solid program. But now you're talking about like Sacramento State. Man, okay, cool, I guess. I mean, it's a program that's coming up, and that would be great for them, but it's not a selling feature for a conference. And unfortunately, that's what they're attracting, is kind of the secondary D1s. Like, even if they get all the players that they want, every school that they're asking, they all come in. It's still not a Power 5 conference.
No.
So when your best schools are the Cougs, the Beavers, and Boise State, if they happen to leave the Mountain West, there's nothing about that makes me excited.
No, I kind of agree with you there, Bo. So right now we have Texas and USC saying that they're going to nix their spring games, and a lot of are citing the college playoffs and the way that they're set up. What was last year? You had if you didn't have a first round bye, you played through 16 weeks, all the way to the end of the season without a break. So I guess teams that feel that they are in the money are saying that they're going to use this time to hone their skills and give the players a time when they're not in Mortal Kombat, more or less. What's your thoughts on this, Dave? And do you think that we're going to see more schools, Penn State, Ohio State, some of the other ones follow this path?
Let me
of cutting out the spring games. I think what we're seeing is it's the impact of the NIL and the draft portal. Because
that's what I was gonna ask you. I was like, oh, let me add a piece. Do you think it's that and the fact that the transfer portal opens again after?
Exactly. Because see, here's the difficulty is now, one is like for a team like Texas, or the teams that go far in the college football playoff, now they're losing weeks of rest time before they get into their spring programs. The other thing is with the transfer portal, they're actually getting players in the spring now. And I read somewhere that I think Texas was having up to 21 mid-year transfers that they have to now integrate into their team. And then the other problem, and I think that Sarkisian might have even talked about it, is that, okay, we put on this game, and now all these people come to the game to see who are the developing players. And now what are they going to do? They're going to start offering them deals to come to their schools. And so yeah, it's not tampering, but I mean, if you're going to have a game, why not go and watch to see, okay, who's the young talent there that we might be able to poach from that team? And so in a way, it's kind of like we might see other schools decide, hey, we're not going to do the spring games, or at least not in a public format anymore. Maybe go to internal scrimmages and that type of stuff. But now they have to integrate, these new players coming in. So maybe they'll go to like the training activities that you were talking about. Now, what I don't really get is, other than evaluating the talent that you have, I don't know how the spring games, and maybe Bo knows better, but I don't know how the spring games add value to the fall team. Other than to evaluate talent, and you can do that in other ways through scrimmages. So, but that's my thought. You might see other schools, if they deem a threat of where now other teams can scout, not our team. That's not the problem. It's scouting their developing players. That then now they become vulnerable to being approached to transfer to their school.
Yeah, well, and so to answer that first part of your question, there is it doesn't really add a lot of value anymore because of the fact that the transfer portal opens after the spring game, right? So you're in a transfer portal period now, and then it stops for whatever reason, and then it opens again after the spring game. So everybody that you played may not still be on your team. So this game absolutely doesn't matter anymore. It used to be like, okay, we got our kids that came in, we have our new guys, we get them the playbook, and you get the spring game to see really you were evaluating your own team, right? You're just like, okay, these are the things we got to do. Maybe we got to move a player, right? Because this is their first live action. It's like, oh, you know what? Maybe he's more of a tight end instead of, a halfback or something, right? So now, because you have the transfer portal, none of those people may be on your team. So why play it? I mean, yeah, I would be surprised if the spring games survive with the way that the NIL and the transfer portal. I mean, college football is pro sports at this point. And so the spring game really probably does end up disappearing. At least the D1 level, right? Like lower level, maybe not, but.
Yeah, I don't see, USC, I don't know, maybe that's a little stretch for them right now, but Texas, Penn State, Ohio State, I expect to see a lot of those, decide not to play a spring game. Like you said, Bo, it's kind of like, you're playing your own players, but they might not be there, with the portal. But I guess that's another reason why they're trying to change the portal also. Dave, Titans coach says he believes that Travis Hunter could be a two-way player in the NFL. The question is, Dave, should he?
Yeah, I went to Grok for this. The Grok is the artificial intelligence on X, formerly known as Twitter.
Okay.
And one of the things that they identified is that last year there was only one player, Scott Matlock from the Chargers, that was a two-way player, played a significant amount of snaps on both offense and defense. So he was a defensive lineman, fullback, and he had played 34% of the offensive snaps, 13% of the defensive snaps, and 50% of the special team snaps.
Oh, it's a true utility guy.
What's that?
A true utility guy.
Yeah, exactly. And then the guy before him was Ricard from the Ravens. We know him as a fullback today. but he was playing two ways. The last time was in 2019. He had similar snap numbers as Matlock, but I think part of the problem is that, one is the roster size. In the old days, the rule was you had to play two ways, and they had much smaller rosters. And if you go way back in the NFL, they had as few as 22 players on the roster, for the entire season. And then, if people got hurt, they would have to replace them. But even when they got larger rosters, you were talking 35 players. And so it was more common to have players going two ways, even after they went to platoon football. But today, with the larger rosters, and then more importantly, I think, is the intricacies of the offensive and the defensive schemes. I think it would be difficult to have a player playing both offense and defense a significant amount, playing, 40% of snaps on both sides of the ball. I think that would be tough. I think it's more likely to go to like a refrigerator Perry type situation where maybe you have a handful of specialty plays. Hey, I'm on the goal line. I got the refrigerator. He's just going to tank it in. And that's not very intricate, right? But so I maybe that they'll try to do it just for the publicity, but I don't think it'll last long. Eventually, he'll have to choose one side of the ball or the others, is what I believe.
So, like, if I were drafting him, I would draft him as a corner, and then I would have packages for him as a receiver, right? Because he's a great corner, and there's not enough of them in the league. Whereas you can find receivers all day, right? I mean, there's probably 15 in this draft that are good, right? They're not amazing, but they're good, right? So I would draft him as that DB and then have some packages that he's in at receiver.
I think they did that with Deion Sanders, didn't they?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, I think they tried a couple with Woodson too, but he just didn't have that offensive burst. But
Rod Woodson.
No, not Rod. The other Woodson, the one that won the Heisman. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, Charles.
Okay.
Yeah. But I don't see a team, that would want to, like you say, maybe put him in a few packages. But when you get to the NFL level, I think I think you need, like Bo says, there's more of a need for a good corner than there is for a wide receiver. Wide receivers, not saying that they're a dime a dozen, but you run across more good wide receivers than you do shutdown corners. At least that's my way of thinking.
No, I mean, absolutely. That being said, the people that are abdicating he should play both ways. If you really think you're going to truly participate in 100 snaps a game and not get hurt, you are out of your mind.
They're not going to double his salary.
No.
So why risk the additional exposure?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, somebody else made that point. But yeah, I think somebody will draft him as a DB and put some packages in for him. But no, I don't. A two-way player, like you say, Bo, playing 100 snaps and not getting hurt. No, no.
Well,
Okay.
and when you think about where he's going to get drafted, right? Like he's a top 3, top 4 pick. These teams aren't set up to make it so that he would be successful going both ways, right? Like if he was playing for KC, and you're like, you know what, you're going to play on both sides of the ball. You know what? He's
Yeah.
probably going to be great, right?
Yeah.
Because they're not going to need him for every play on either side, right? But he's going to go to the Titans or the Patriots or some other dumpster fire, the Giants, whatever, right? And you're going to die out there. You're going to have to be the dude on both sides of the ball. That is not going to work out.
Yeah, no. Let's see, Dave. We have Ashton Jonte. He's going to be, or at least they say, that he'll be the first running back off the board. Yahoo Sports writers Nick Tice and Charles McDonald predict that he'll fall to the Broncos at number 20. Dave, do you believe that it's going to be, one of those years where, it's anyone but a running back?
Well, if that happens, I'll be happy because the Steelers are picking 21. So then I won't have to worry about that. Yeah, he's supposed to be like a great runner, but you take a look at Barkley, Saquon Barkley. The Giants tried to make him the center of their offense, went nowhere. And it wasn't until he went to the Eagles that had a balanced attack that they didn't have to rely on him. And it's the same thing with Derrick Henry with the Ravens. And so I think that's why you're seeing less and less running backs being selected really, really high. Could he be drafted earlier? I think people are surprised that he might fall to number 20. I'm not so surprised, but there just may be some teams that, hey, we need a running back, and the Steelers are a team that needs a running back. And they're going to say, well, hey, he's the best running back there. We got to grab him. But then it's like, at what cost? Because then if you're missing out on an offensive lineman, a blue chip offensive lineman that's going to be opening up the holes for him, you're kind of defeating the purpose. And this is supposed to be a really deep running back class this year in the draft. And I think teams would be wiser to have patience. Because you can have a great running back, but unless he has a team around him, similar to a quarterback, they have to have a team around them. They can't win the games on their own. And so I would not be surprised. I think that he's supposed to be a top 10 back or a top 10 selection.
Well, he was second in the Heisman Trophy balloting was.
Yeah, but the problem is the position that he's playing. And I wouldn't be surprised, but there are other teams that do need running backs. But I think with such a deep running back class, they would be wiser to get some beef, build up the trenches, and then wait until the second or even third round before they pick up a running back. And I'm talking about teams that are in need.
Well, and to your point there, the thing that is kind of funny is it's also a deep class when it comes to the trenches. So offense and defensive line, there's quite a few of them. And it was funny because I was listening to Shefty earlier today that he was talking, because they're all down at the combine, right? And what he was getting from the scouts and the GMs is there's not a real big drop off in talent if you're picking at 10 versus picking 35. So then all of a sudden, if you got a lot of guys that are kind of in that same spot, then that first round pick becomes interesting because maybe you do go get Gentry because you control the 5th year option instead of getting him in the second round. Because when you look at what teams are doing with running backs is they don't want to pay you ever, right? Like, they're paying kickers more than half of the running backs, which is wild to me. So then having a first round, maybe second, because that's 4-year, right? You kind of control them until a lot of these teams are like, wow, 5 years in, my running back is washed. we want someone else anyway. It's kind of interesting that maybe you do get him, because in the second round you could still get that offensive lineman because of how deep it is.
Yeah.
Chad?
You saw Chad in the
chat
comments there. Hello, yep. Chad.
So little NFL talk here. Bo, the Packers still are, like now that they're proposing a different rule against the tush push.
Always crying.
I mean, but what team was that? We saw stop the tush push 3 times? Mm-hmm. But Bo, I mean, haven't we gotten enough of this? Like let's just get on with it. I mean, if your team can't stop it, then hey, don't let them get down there.
So that's the thing to me, right? Like they're crying about, oh, it's almost guaranteed. Well, it obviously isn't, because when other teams do it, it doesn't work, right? So just because they're better than you at it doesn't mean you ban the rule. It's a QB sneak. There's nothing special about it. And if you're going to get rid of their ability to push the guy, that means you can no longer help advance a running back down the field either, right? When that offensive lineman catches up with a guy that's starting to lose momentum and he shoves him another 5 yards, you got to take that away, because that's the same play, right? I mean, so, and then at the same time, I'm not an Eagles fan. I don't care about the play, but stop being bad at something and trying to ban it. Like, this is stupid. I mean, at the end of the day, if you don't want them to get the first down, don't let them have 3rd and 1. Make it 3rd and 3, and they can't run it. Simple as that. Play better defense, and it's not a problem.
Simple, good problem solved.
Those types of things just irritate the hell out of me. Be better than the guy you're lined up against. That's why I'm never mad when someone runs up a score. If you don't want them to run up the score, stop them.
Stop them.
Simple as that. I was a defensive player. We had games where we blew teams out. I've been on teams where we got blown out. And you know what? It sucks to get blown out. But at the same time, all you can do is look in the mirror and be like, hey, you know what? We didn't get it done.
What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, I don't really care one way or the other. I believe that at one point it was illegal to push from behind in the NFL. And I don't mind it. Just set whatever the rule is and play by it. And what it comes down to is who outplays the other team. And so I mean, I would not be against if the NFL said, hey, you cannot help advance the ball by pushing from behind, which would eliminate the plays that Bo's talking about. It doesn't matter to me. Just set the rule, and then the teams play by the rules and don't cry about it during the season. And
there you go.
And that's it.
Dave, the Rams have permitted Stafford to find his own market value. Is that kind of an official see you later, alligator?
Yeah, that's interesting, because apparently Tom Brady hosted Stafford at his house in Montana. Yes. And they went skiing and I think hunting together. And it's kind of like, how's that not tampering? And you can't friends. Use, hey, we're friends. That fig leaf is a little too small to cover those private parts, And
I don't think he's trying to cover them.
Right, exactly. And so what it comes down to is maybe the Rams gave him, if they gave permission, I guess he could talk to Tom Brady if the Rams said okay.
True.
But yeah. It's like, why would they do that? I mean, other than to say goodbye.
I mean, they're talking about moving off Cup too. So
yeah, well, Cup, I think they're definitely moving off of. But I think Stafford, I mean, who's your backup, Bo?
who's Stafford's backup?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they have Jimmy G.
Well, Jimmy G, I thought Jimmy G was gone too.
No, I think he has one more. I think he has one more year there. And then what was the guy? Stetson Bennett. There we go.
Yeah.
They still have Bennett on the roster. So, and Chad, yeah, to the Raiders is what we're talking about. And I actually wouldn't hate that move. Right? So you got Carroll there. They have an okay offensive line. They have a good defense. They have two outstanding tight ends. You bring in Stafford, which you're not going to have to spend a ton of money on, right? Dude's 37. And then you go and get an extra piece, which, Washington's moving off of Wagner. So I could see them pairing him with Crosby. And then go get an extra receiver, which we've seen the receiver market over the last couple of years that you can get receivers for relatively cheap. So, I mean, you could go get a D-Hop or Devontae, or maybe you land Cup. Who knows? All of a sudden, that Raiders team becomes very interesting. You pair that with KC that, doesn't look like the unbeatable force that they've been. The Broncos and the Chargers are, solid teams. So all of a sudden that becomes a very competitive division. Could be fun to watch.
Yeah. Could be.
The Rams don't pick until 26. I guess they'll have to sign another free agent quarterback.
Well, that's why I was asking who was in the back of that quarterback.
Well, I mean, I have heard they're entertaining a play for Darnold, which that would make sense because then you're moving towards something you have a future with. Because Stafford, although he played great last year, right? He's 37, so yeah. He's not your long-term build-around guy. So then, if you're trying to think about making a move now, you get. Not that he has a crazy cap hit or anything. I think he's only owed like $24 million or something this year anyway. But I don't know. Like, I don't know why you would move off him now while he's still cheap. Comparatively. Yeah. Then go overspend for probably Darnold. And then everybody else is a downgrade from there.
Well, speaking of Darnold, do you think that it's possible that Darnold could be, under the right circumstances, the next Baker Mayfield? Look what happened to Baker, but does that necessarily mean that he's staying with the Vikings, Bo?
He would be smart to stay with the Vikings. The Vikings would be smart to keep him. His connection with Jefferson was fantastic. I mean, that connection worked amazingly. I don't think he is the next Baker because Baker has something Darnold doesn't. When everything falls apart, Baker bets on himself. When everything falls apart for Darnold, he gets rattled. And we saw when he was getting pressured, he was not the same guy that you watched all season, right?
He turned into the Jets.
That's exactly it. I made that comment during the game. I was like, "Oh, he's out there seeing ghosts." Like, they were getting in his face all day. Whereas with Baker, when they're in his face all day, he's still putting the rock up, right? Like he's still trying to make things happen. Whereas Darnold really crumbled. So wherever Darnold goes, he's going to need a line that can keep it clear. If he has that, he throws the ball fantastic. Like, I can't argue with that. He looked amazing when he had time. As soon as he doesn't have time, it's a real problem.
What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, the problem for Darnold is that the teams that need a quarterback, by and large, they need offensive linemen too.
Exactly.
And so Chad's talking about the Clowns and or the Raiders, but the thing is if he goes there, that's not a recipe for success. I would want to, like Bo said, They went 14-3 last year. So give him some stack up his offensive line. Make sure that that's good to go, and you know that you got a good passer there, and protect him. Now maybe the Rams might be a better situation. You know, maybe that would work out. But I mean, he has to be very careful because he could go into a situation where he's just not going to thrive. And he's in a great situation in Minnesota, I think.
Oh yeah. Well, think about it. If you're Darnold, on what planet are you like? I think the Browns are the answer.
Yeah, I'm trading Justin Jefferson for who?
Well, and how much success have the Browns have since they came back into the league in '99? So since '99, what part of that history are you like? You know what? That's the jam. Let's do that.
Oh man, yeah. I think that the Vikings would do well to keep him, but are they going to move on to JJ? The younger, we'll see.
McCarthy.
Yeah. So Dave, Stephen Jones, he says that he expects Trey Lawrence to leave in free agency. Jerry Jones, Stephen also says that the Cowboys will draft a quarterback. What does that do to who? Cooper, was it Cooper Rush?
Well, Cooper, his contract is up. So after this coming season, Dak and Cooper both have their contracts up.
Well, Dak just signed it.
Yeah, he just signed his extension. But sorry, I meant to say Cooper and Lance. They both of theirs are up. So neither one of them will be on the roster because they're not going to be able to afford to keep Cooper Rush. Because even with the cap going up, they're still over the cap.
Yeah, their cap space is miserable there. Well, what do you think, Dave? Before I go to this other question here, real quick.
No, I'm just wondering if right now they were talking about the cap going up to 277 to as high as 281.
So I believe 280 is where it landed.
Is it 280? Oh, did they? Oh, I didn't realize they had announced. I know they had given a range before between 277 and 281.
Yeah, I think
that was more than they were thinking. That's more than what they thought. I think some people were using because it was 252 last year, right?
Yeah.
And so and a lot of people were thinking, okay, well, it'll be like 270, 271. Now all of a sudden it's closer to 280. Maybe it gives a team a chance to maybe retain somebody that they thought that they weren't going to be able to retain before this cap came. But it's always what it comes down to. Once you let somebody go, and even if they weren't 100% of what you needed, it's like, okay, how do I fill that void? Because it's still a void. And what do I fill that with?
Yeah, so the cap, as it sits today, the Cowboys are still $3 million over the cap, even with the new cap.
Even with the new cap.
Yeah, my Seahawks are almost $14 million over. So it's going well.
Bo, NFL.com says that these 4 players should be traded. Wide receivers, 3 wide receivers, Tyreek Hill, George Pickens, and DK Metcalf. Along with the 4th players, of course, is Micah Parsons. Bo, what do you think about these 4? Or do you think that there's another 4 that...
there should be a 5th added to that, and that would be Tyler Lockett. And
I got Tyler down a little bit further, Bo. Don't worry, I'm going to get to Tyler.
well, so the only reason I say that is Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf are both a $31 million cap hit into each. So Tyler, obviously, you can't really trade him, right? I mean, he's old enough that you're gonna probably try and get him to restructure. Maybe you can trade in that scenario, something like that. DK, you can still get a nice return for, which I think they should probably do. Again, the Seahawks are 14 mil over the cap. They got some work to do. And so if they can get some draft picks back and a player for DK, it would make a ton of sense. Not only from a financial standpoint, but let's be honest, DK isn't utilized extraordinarily well with the Seahawks because even though people like to liken him to Megatron, that's not who he is, right? Physical size, Megatron comes to mind. His ability to run routes, his comp is Des Bryant. He runs 2 nice routes downfield. If he has to run anything short, it's a very lazy, uncrisp route, easy to defend. And so, unfortunately, although his size is Megatron-esque, his route running ability is Des. So if they could move on from him, it would probably help the Hawks more than anything, especially since if the only 2 things you're good at are deep routes and your offensive line is hot trash and you don't have time to push the ball, he's not doing anything. Then you factor in his off the ball penalties and all of that. It doesn't make a ton of sense to keep him. And yes, Lockett won't get anything in return.
What do you think about this list, Dave?
Well, I mean, the only thing I balked at, there's a lot of Steeler fans that want George Pickens gone. But, again, you're creating a massive hole. And even if you draft a wide receiver in the first round, or if you trade for somebody or sign a nice free agent,
I'm trading for
you're right back to where you started. You got one wide receiver instead of 2, and then again they're going to be all over that guy. And so to me, I don't understand why George Pickens is on the list. He's still on
his rookie deal, right?
He is, but he'll be on the last year of his rookie deal. So really the decision point for the Steelers is, do we sign him or do we let him play out his contract? Because the thing is trying to trade him, teams are saying, well, hey, he'll be a free agent after this year. So why not wait? Yeah. So, they're not going to be able to get top value for him by trading him. So really their decision is do we let him play out his contract, or I guess they could tag him. I guess that's one thing, but sometimes that backfires, I think, on a lot of teams, or do they try to extend them? That's kind of like the decision point that they're at. Some people have said, well, hey, if you let him play out his contract, if I were his agent, I wouldn't want him to play because he's only going to be making $3.5 million in new money this year. So it's kind of like, well, why risk my body for $3.5 million? I'll sit it out and then I'll be a free agent. And then, one of these type deals. So I would try to pick up, I would try to keep Pickens. So I don't agree with him being on this list. The other players kind of make sense. The Cowboys, but it's the same problem. They could alleviate a lot of their cap problems by giving up CD Lamb.
And then
right, but then you run into the same problem. You're creating a hole. How do you fill the void?
Well, and especially when you think they're what I say, $3 million over. They haven't signed Parsons yet.
Yeah, that's why Parsons is on that list.
How do you retain him?
I mean, are they gonna? Is Jerry gonna print money downstairs? Like the Dodgers?
He does, right? Because you're driving to the car dealership bankrupt and like, hey, you know what? That Ferrari looks tight.
Yeah, and I know Chad is saying I'd rather keep Pickens and pick up Debo.
Sure.
That's a
Any number two.
possibility. I think that the Steelers are going to be belt and suspenders. They're probably going to try to sign a free agent, wide receiver, but they're also going to draft one as well because they have to rebuild that wide receiver room. They're very, very thin at wide receiver right now.
I'm on the bandwagon for trading Pickens for Garrett Wilson.
Well, that's another possibility because now you haven't created a void. You're just switching talent, which would be fine too. I think we talked about that last week.
Yeah,
that defense would be ridiculous.
but it makes sense for the Jets and for the Steelers, since neither one of them knows who's going to be starting at quarterback.
Yeah, so, I mean, because where the Steelers really, and I know we're going to talk more about them, I just want to bring this point up, is whenever they traded Deontay Johnson, they created a hole that they never filled. Mm-hmm. They tried to, but they were unsuccessful.
So since I have Steelers fans here, what are you doing at quarterback?
we'll talk about that in a second.
I got to go here in a second. So
I want to ask you, what are you guys going to do with Geno? Is Geno going to get that $16 million cap bonus on the 16th of March? Do you cut Tyler, or do you re-sign him?
So the way that it makes the most sense money-wise, right, is if you were to – you have to re-sign Geno. You have to extend him. And why I say that is he has grossly outperformed what he's been earning. Their draft location doesn't get them somebody that is good, right? Because there's only 2 top 10 quarterbacks in this draft. They're picking 18, right? So that means you're looking at a 3rd rounder at best. And if we watched any college football at all of them are projects, right? So that doesn't really bode well for move Geno out and bring someone in. So say you moved off of Geno and you're looking at other free agents. What free agent that is available is better than Geno? I don't see any of them, right? Especially when you figure 2 of the last 3 years, he reset the single season passing record for the Seahawks behind a bottom 5 offensive line. Focus on some offensive line. Maybe give this guy 2 seconds to throw the ball instead of 1.8. And I bet some of these red zone problems start to go away because they're like, oh, well, how come he only throws interceptions in the red zone? Well, because he has the same amount of time to throw down there as he has everywhere else, but the field is much shorter. All of a sudden those defenders are a lot closer. It's crazy. So yeah, no, you have to keep Geno just because there's not a better option out there. I mean, if you're looking at free agents, Darnold's your best other guy. He's going to cost the same amount. Why would you move off a guy that knows your system? Right. Or you're going to look at an old guy. So you got Cousins or Stafford who will die behind the offensive line they have. So that doesn't work. Then you look at, okay, well, who else is available? What? Zach Wilson? That's your answer to get out of Geno? I mean, so it doesn't really make a lot of sense. Then you look at Lockett. Ideally, what you would do with Lockett is try and restructure, right? Do an extension restructure where the pay goes down and then trade DK to get some other draft picks so that maybe you can actually fortify that offensive line. Because again, if your deep threat is really only good as a deep threat and you don't have enough time to throw deep, why is he on your roster? Because, I mean, even defenders aren't going to follow you all the way downfield if they know that everybody's getting home.
Makes sense, Bo. Bo, you want to give us your final thoughts, and then I'll go to Dave.
Yeah. can football hurry up and get back?
you got the U.S. What is it? The U.S.
UFL.
Yeah, all of that starts next month. So I mean, it's coming sort of. I hope it's a better product this year. That's all I can say. Right on, guys. Always fun hanging out with you. Take it easy.
You want to hear the Pittsburgh stuff?
Oh, yes. Yes, I do.
Okay. We're talking about that the fact that Tomlin likes Fields, but what do you do with Fields? NFL says that excuse me, the Steelers are going to draft a running back in the with the 21st pick. Dave answered some of our questions here. Quarterback, running back.
This says NFL.com was saying that Tomlin is a Wilson guy.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense because when Mike Tomlin was talking, he specifically said he likes a mobile quarterback. Mm-hmm. And so that automatically indicates that if he would have a preference for Justin Fields. Art Rooney II in his end of the year thing said that, hey, we will probably sign one or the other, either Wilson or Fields. He didn't negate the idea of hiring both, but he said, hey, they both are starting quality, and it doesn't make sense for us to try to keep two starters on the field. We need to make a choice, basically, is what Art Rooney. Omar Khan at the Combine, he just gave his press conference. He said that he's talking to both people, to Wilson's people and to Fields' people. He's not giving away what they're going to do. But the bottom line is that Pittsburgh is not the decision maker. They're both free agents.
Yeah.
And so other teams come March 10th, whenever the legal tampering period starts, mm-hmm. If they don't sign one or the other before then, well then, hey, guess what? Some other team might start bidding on one or the other or both. And they could end up losing both of them.
I mean, the hard thing with Fields, though, is he's so inaccurate over 10 yards.
Right.
Well, and I think, but they went 5-2 with him where they really worked. They had a scheme where they wanted him to reduce his turnovers, and they were able to do that and take advantage of his mobility.
But he never threw a pass over 20 yards.
Well, not just that.
He threw a couple long ones.
You won
he
a
didn't
game.
Complete many, but
you won a game during that period by kicking 5 field goals. So you weren't moving the ball. And during that period, I think every single one of those games, the defense also scored.
Well, was that Wilson or was that?
No, that was Fields. That was Fields.
Oh, that was Fields. Yeah. Well, I mean, again, he's had in his short little career, he went through like 2 or 3 different coordinators. One after each year he was in Chicago, he was either having a new coach or a new offensive coordinator.
For sure.
If he is re-signed by Pittsburgh, I think that this will be the first time that he's had the same head coach in the same offensive scheme. And he probably has more upside at this point than Russell Wilson.
I would agree that he has.
But what about his inaccuracy and his failure to move? I mean, he's not that mobile. He's mobile enough, but I don't think he's a game changer.
Oh, Justin Fields can move. I mean, he was moving the ball on his leg. He can run. And it's definitely run better than Russell Wilson. And
no
I
doubt.
think what they'll have to do is they'll have to have an offense that highlights his strengths, which is his mobility and maybe his short passing game. And that's what they'll have to do if they sign Fields. If they don't sign Fields and they bring in Wilson, well, it's the same thing. Adjust that offensive scheme to highlight his strengths, the moon ball and this kind of stuff. and try not to get him into a position of where he has to move the ball on his own, with his own
Then
legs.
you
I
have
mean,
to
because that
strengthen
wasn't
the
working.
offensive line, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Now the thing is, here's the problem for Pittsburgh is that their bigger needs, what I think that they're probably going to be looking at in the first and second rounds is wide receiver and defensive line. Their defensive line, especially the interior, Keanu Benton is really a defensive end. He's misplaced being in the interior. They got to get him out to the edge, out further out so that you can take advantage of his mobility. They need to draft a horse out of this draft to take over that center because Ogunjobi, Marchavius Adams, Benton, none of them were getting to the quarterback. Hayward was the only guy really pressuring the quarterback from the interior, and they were having problems controlling the run through the middle. So they got to address the defensive line. Wide receiver, they got to rebuild the room. Their offensive line is very young, and the difficulty is you're taking a Broderick Jones who really underperformed at right tackle, shifting him to left tackle because Dan Moore will be gone in free agency. And then the question is he going to perform any better at his natural position where he played in the SEC or not? The hope is that he will. Troy Faltano is coming off of injury, was a natural left tackle who will be playing right tackle. And so the question is will they be able to anchor those two positions? On the interior, I think they're very happy with Frazier. Daniels probably won't be back because he had an Achilles tear, but Mason McCormick did okay. Do you ride with him another year? I mean, he did okay. He didn't do great, but he did okay. The wild card is Isaac Seumalo, the other guard. He had an off year. A lot of penalties, a couple sacks were his responsibility. He's getting into his 30s, and it's like, hey, has he exhausted his gas tank? And so they may have to try to draft or sign a free agent guard and maybe even a tackle, because I think in the draft they're probably going to day 3 before they draft an offensive lineman. Just simply because they have so many other greater needs for the first, running back, wide receiver, defensive line, and so in outside corner is another. So Omar Khan's going to be busy both in free agency, I think, as well as figuring out how to do this draft.
Give us your final thoughts there, Dave.
All right. Well, I mean, the combine, normally in the past, I'm the average Steelers fan. I used to I didn't really pay a lot of attention to all the college talent. I would wait until Pittsburgh drafted players. And then I would kind of focus in on, okay, who are these guys that they drafted? But with our Steelers town hall that we do on Monday nights, the last few weeks, we've just been talking the combine, the draft prospects. There's 329 players that are going to be at the draft combine. And we came up with a bunch of players all in the different positions that the Steelers might be interested in looking in. And it's kind of exciting. I'm kind of really enjoying it. It's something that I never got into. And in 2 weeks, then the 2024 season will have officially come to a close on 12 March, which means all the old contracts go away. And now all these people are really free agents. And then we're going to be off to the races, re-signing this. The Steelers have 17 players that were on the roster in 2024 that are going to be unrestricted free agents. And so, who gets re-signed, who doesn't, and then also from positions of need, what players are they going to be re-signing? So for me, it's kind of it's an exciting process because now you're getting to see these 2025 rosters actually being reassembled. because it doesn't really, you can't really say, well, hey, this is what they were in 2024. We're going to build on them. You're almost like rebuilding. It's like rebuilding an engine. And so I think that's kind of exciting.
Well, hey, all right, guys. Very good discussion tonight. Appreciate you sticking around, Bo.
I didn't know you were going short.
Bill's not here.
That's fair.
Cheap shot by me, but he's so knowledgeable. He really is.
He is.
And not only that. Well, Don was under the weather tonight. So that was another reason. Don and Reggie weren't here. So, hey. I think we did very well. And we always have Bo up there making sure that we have an audience, you and Dave. So thank you guys. Looking forward to talking to everybody next week. Seeing what's happening.
I think Bo likes the tush push because he's been following rugby now.
No, I mean, the thing is I hate eliminating plays, right? Like if it's a legal formation, learn how to stop it. Like right. I mean, because these plays only work for so long anyway, right? Like someone's going to figure it out, or you're just not going to have three guys up front that bench 500 plus. I mean,
who was the team that put their defensive lineman literally sideways?
That was the dumbest thing.
That didn't make any sense because you don't have any push.
Yeah, there's no leverage. Like I don't know what they were doing.
Like that was crazy. He was completely sideways.
Like he just was like, you know what? It's gonna work. I don't even care. I'm just gonna lay down, take a nap. Yeah, I don't know what he was doing, but when it comes to like just basic physics, there was no way that was gonna work.
Right.
But who was the team that stopped him though? There was a team that stopped him at least twice.
So a couple of teams did actually stop him. The success rate had actually dropped fairly significantly because the year before, I think they were like 90% success rate, and it was right at 80% this last year. So teams were starting to stop it.
Yeah, and that's part of the game is how do you out scheme them?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So stop trying to eliminate it because you're bad at it. Get better.
All right, guys.
That should have been my final thought. Get better at what you
do. All right, guys. See you all next week, man.
Take it easy, guys.
Take care.
Have lots of fun, man. Have a good one.
Bye-bye. All right. Well, I think we're good to go. That was it was short, but it was